This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with guitarist TRACII Guns of the hard rock act LA Guns. If I knew absolutely nothing about LA Guns, how would you describe the band's music to me?
We're really old guys that are really cringeworthy because we sing about sex. That's LA Guns.
Well, I would say that you're sort of a classic hard rock band.
Yeah. Musically, we definitely
are. We'll get to you singing about sex when we start talking about
okay.
Today is the release date for your latest album, Leopard Skin.
Yeah, man.
Cleopatra Records. In a career that spanned 40 years, 16 studio albums, multiple compilations, live albums, all that stuff, you could easily rest on your career, go out, play your hits. Everyone would be happy. What inspires you or drives you to create new music?
I mean, the past already happened. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you do today? And I write music. And I love music. It's my hobby. It's the love of my life. It's my best friend. So, as long as I'm around, I'm always going to be writing and recording something. LA Guns is the top of my star. It's the most important, music that I write. And that's the motivation, is just the love of the hobby. Really, it's the craft.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the craft. When it comes to creating an LA Guns album, do you split songwriting responsibilities with Phil? Does Phil do the lyrics? You do the guitars? How's it work?
Yeah, I basically write all the music. Johnny and Ace bring in 1 or 2 songs per album, and then we work on those together, just, one-on-one, me with Ace or me with Johnny. And then Adam Hamilton, our drummer, our studio drummer, he and I really do the bulk of lifting when it comes to the music. I have a full studio. He has a full studio. So we just kind of work through text message and email, and, we're on the same page, and he comes up with great ideas. And, but every album's different. Adam and I always have, a little bit of a discussion on what we did last time and what are we going to do this time? And depending on the headspace I'm in, that's generally how the music comes out. It's like, it takes me about 10 days to write and record 10 or 11 songs. They just kind of come from the universe. And then once Adam and I record all that music, Phil and the guys, they get, the like rough versions of the songs, and then they have their comments, and then that's how we do it. So we're not all in the same room yelling at each other, which is much healthier way to do it. And then Adam and I finish up the music. I have, Johnny and Ace come in one-on-one, and they do their stuff. And then it's off to Phil Lewis and his writing partner, Mitch Davis. And they go to New York. That's where Mitch lives. And they spend about a week in the studio, just, bashing it out. And then it's like a Christmas present for me, because I don't hear anything till it's done, and then it comes back, and it's just always mind blowing for me that, we're able to do this. And this album is no exception.
I'd say this album a bit returned to form as far as music's concerned. I feel like on the last one, Black Diamonds was kind of going way back to kind of like raw 60s, 70s style stuff.
Yeah. And a little bit depressing, which is good too. But this album's much more uplifting and fun. And, when I write, stuff like this, and Phil, he adapts, and, his performance on this record is just mind blowing. It's like, normally I listen to our records and I listen to the music, but like on this one, it's just like, he's just so goddamn good. Like, wow.
Well, you got a couple songs out now from the album as promotional singles. One of them is Lucky Motherfucker, which I suppose you could apply to anyone in the music industry.
And well, anybody that's lucky, We certainly are. That song's about us, and but put in the context of like kind of a, what was it, like a grifter or a snake oil salesman, selling stuff, out of his jacket or out of the back of his van, and always failing upward, and but we like to think of it as we're a little less tricky than that, but there's got to be something about you to be around a long time.
True. As you described, a band that likes to write about sex, obviously Taste It. You don't have to give too much of a description of what that's
about.
Yeah. I'm a little shocked that was the first single.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to give people a taste, right? Here, taste this. Yeah, I mean, when we started out, we were very young, and we love women, and we've always loved to praise women, and so yes, it's very cringy for us to go do sex action every night, but we love it. We still write about it, and I mean, there's really nothing better than women for us. We love our women.
Now you got a good bookend for it. Beginning of the night, end of the night song.
That's it, man.
You got any other songs that you're planning to release as singles?
I don't think so. The album came out today, so now it's 10 singles, but we'll be poking individual songs on a daily basis here for a month or two, and on social media. And crazy thing is it's the first day the album's out, and all the vinyl and all the CDs are sold out. That's been most of the mail today. It's like, hey man, I gotta wait till the 28th because it's sold out. And yeah. And then we had to do our order from the label for the albums we're going to sell on tour, and they reserved them for us. Thank God, because we leave in 2 weeks, and if everybody else isn't getting their records until the 28th, we would be a week into the tour at that point. So we got ours.
Kind of crazy how vinyl format has been taking off as of late.
Yeah, well, I think especially, for a younger crowd that's very into vinyl, and guys like us that, we grew up on vinyl. So, knowing that it's available and it's not very expensive relative, I was looking at the wholesale sheet to buy CDs and to buy albums. And I think the CD is only $5 less than the album, so like wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you own forever, and that's why, it's such a cool thing, same with CDs, except I don't take care of anything very well. So, CDs weren't the best idea for me, but other people that are very, organized and neat with their things, they're a great format still.
There's no songs on the album called Leopard Skin. So how did you settle on the album's title?
Phil and I were talking about it, when the music was just about done and I was getting the tracks back with the vocals, and I had said, I don't want to come up with anything clever, like I'm tired of trying to out clever every album. And he's like, well, yeah, we really didn't have any ideas. And I'm like, well, we can't call it the Black Album or the White Album, that's overdone. And then I just looked to my left, and I have this very rock and roll leopard skin chair from the 50s. I'm like, leopard skin. And Phil wasn't all in at first. He wasn't connecting the way that I viewed it. Is that like, leopard skin represents rock and roll, and rockabilly, and all these great images of a lot of our heroes, from the 60s and 70s. And he's like, oh, okay, I see where you're going with this. So then we got excited about it. And, we just ran a contest on Instagram where people could post themselves, wearing leopard skin and stuff like that. So it's really fun. And the album's really fun. So I think that it really ties the band up in a good way. It's like, this is the most LA Guns album. So there was a review said, the only thing surprising about the new record is that it's the first time they had a record called Leopard Skin. I like that.
This is your first album for Cleopatra Records, although I think you've worked with them on compilations and stuff before. How did you end up signing with them for this album?
Brian Pereira, the owner, he started his career making LA Guns and Guns N' Roses t-shirts when, I was still 18, 19, 20. And that's how he started his business, coming to our shows and making the stuff and selling it. And we've been friends ever since, for like 40 years. And he had come with an offer when the band first got back together, and Frontiers just offered us more money, so we went there, and we had a great experience with them. They're in so many ways responsible for us, the growth of the rebirth of the band, but then, they started having issues with their marketing department and stuff like that. And, they let me go. And it was a big relief, because I tried to get out before Black Diamonds. I tried to get out, and they wanted to sue me. And I'm like, oh fuck, whatever. Okay, here, So anyways, yeah, it's a local label. It's based out of LA. They love the band, obviously, and we're all friends. And now, that's the kind of the greatest part of the band right now, is that the band is old friends. The crew is old friends of the members of the band. Management, business management, agent, and label are now all old friends. So I couldn't define it any other way than it really is a family of friends, all being excited and pushing in the same direction,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no shitheads, right? That's what you want. You don't want any no shitheads, man.
Were there shitheads at Frontiers?
There was one.
It seems like an interesting label. I've talked to many Frontiers artists, and I know everybody's going to tiptoe around, some things when you're working for the label. But I've heard things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
You're going to be heading out on the Lucky MFer tour, or Motherfucker tour.
Yeah, Lucky Motherfucker tour.
April 22nd. You're doing the U.S. through October, actually. How many songs do you think you'll get in from the new album?
The idea is always 2 off of new records, and then we keep them in the set, So we're talking about which ones, and I think everybody's on the same page, but we won't know until we actually rehearse through them and see how they translate. Yeah, that's always as albums come out and as touring comes up. Like, for example, we're headlining all the way until July, and then we go out with Tom Kiefer, so that shortens our set by about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. So then we get 45 minutes to an hour, and that's where it gets tough. It's like oh shit, what do we do? I mean, those sets are always power packed, the shorter set. I don't get to noodle and diddle around in between songs like I do in a headlining set, but I always look forward to that. And then beyond October, we just keep going. There's things coming in right now all the way through next May. So I'm looking forward to playing a lot of guitar. I really am. I'm really excited about it.
You look excited in every picture I see of you. Obviously things are going well.
I think so. It's like every morning my girlfriend reminds me, look at me. You're a lucky motherfucker. I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I am. And I got the best kids. I got 2 boys, and they're one's like some crazy mad genius. And then my Danish son, who's in Denmark, he just turned 5, and he's on his bicycle laughing. And, he's more of a, how do I describe him? Little sketchy guy. He's funny. He's a prankster. I got a lot of happy parts going on.
Now, as your fellow rock stars before you, I see that you are getting into the liquor business. The other guys are endorsing hard stuff like vodka, tequila, and whiskey, but you're endorsing a coffee liqueur. It's
Yeah,
called TRACII Guns Mojave Mojo plus Java Coffee. How
yeah.
did this come about?
Well, it's the coffee company, Writers and Rockers. We have our own coffee too. And Rob, he's such a cool dude. Him and his wife, they run this company out of Canada, and they are really funny, cool people. And I'm a big coffee drinker, and my favorite drink, if I'm gonna drink, is a White Russian. So I was like, "Hey, how about this?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We've had this brand up here that outsells Kahlua," and I'm like, "Really?" So they sent me that, and then the difference is mine has more alcohol in it. And I remember getting the first bottles, and I made a nice little White Russian. I call them white dudes. And it was so strong. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. All right. So, even though it's kind of pricey, you're getting like, more for your money kind of a thing. And people like it. It's hard to get. It's not real easy to get, because certain stores in certain states are able to stock it, and it's kind of not legal in other states because it's from Canada. And now with the tariffs, it's going to be brutal, man. But whatever.
So before I interviewed you, half hour ago, I talked to Anthony Kryzan. He had written a couple of songs for a project that you were a part of. I almost forgot about this project called Contraband in 19.
Oh, wow.
And that was you, Richard Black from Shark Island, Michael Schenker, Shar Peterson from Vixen, and Bobby Blotzer. Fantastic album, I think. Everything looked good on paper, but obviously something went askew. If you don't mind, first, how did you get involved in it?
Contraband was a project put together by our collective manager, Alan Kovac. He started a new label, and we were the experiment. And obviously, and he also managed the writers, so, and the producer and everything. Alan, he's a big guy. He's got his hands in a lot of things. And so it was easy for Michael and I, because we just went in and tracked whatever we want, and left room for each other here and there. And it was kind of better for Michael, because Michael's not influenced by TRACII Guns, right? TRACII Guns is influenced by Michael Schenker. So I had to be really careful to do something else. You know what I mean? I really wanted us to have different sounds. And of course, Michael really has a Michael Schenker sound. So I had to just go like full blues, kind of, old school. But to this day, that record really stands up. I find more people talking about it now than when it came out, but what happened is we started a tour, LA Guns Rat tour, with Contraband, doing 4 songs in between the sets. First night of the fucking tour, man, the singer just walks off stage because his mic didn't work, and left me and Schenker up there, and that was the end of that. Our Kovac gave him $200 and said, "Oh, see ya." So that was it. That was the end of it.
Interesting story.
Yeah,
it's rock and roll.
Yeah. There's a lot of ego. I don't want to say egos. It's kind of selfishness, like kind of this not being self-aware. Rock and roll bands are a team effort. And you don't want to be the weak link. You don't want to be the dick. Because it's never going to end up good for the dick. No.
So outside of LA Guns, you obviously work on numerous other projects beyond Contrabands, for sure. But your most recent ones, I would say, are SUNBOMB with Michael Sweet. You released 2 albums with him, your latest being in 2021, I believe, Light Up the Sky. No, you had a newer one. But will there be a follow-up to that one?
Well, those are Frontiers projects. And how do I say it? When I got LA Guns released, they didn't release me from those. you know, it's Sunbomb and what's the other
Blackbird
one?
Angel, Blackbird.
Blackbird Angels. I'm supposed to do one more Sunbomb, two more Blackbird Angels. Supposed to do a couple more with Jack, but he passed away. So, but I think they're going to let me, you know, I think they're going to leave me alone, you know. So I think that's in the best interest for everybody. You know, and the second Sunbomb record, I really wasn't prepared to do that one, but a lot of time had gone by, and they leaned on me, you know, like hey, you know, you got to do this. I'm like, fuck, you know, because the first one was so heavy. It's like, well, you know, I'm not feeling that right now. So of course I said that, and the girl I was going out with at the time, she goes, "You go home right now and you start writing." And I'll never forget that day. I got home and I came up with like 6 or 7 of those musical pieces, just sitting on the floor in the living room with the heaviest guitar sound I could come up with, and it went pretty quick. You know, Michael was really happy.
So just to clarify, since LA Guns is not with Frontiers, they're not going to hold you to what you owe for Sunbomb and Blackbird Angels?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
You know, the funny thing about Frontiers, they like what I do, but they're not into the kind of music I'm into. You know, they're into more slick, operatic kind of notey music, which is great, you know, but I don't do that. You know, it's not my thing. Never been my thing.
I did scratch my head when they announced they signed Megadeth.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but that's just smart, and that's because Tom Lipsky's there now, and Tom Lipsky, he's awesome. Like, you know, he knows metal inside and out. He signed LA Guns to CMC Records for the American Hardcore record, you know, and what a great guy, man. You know, and it's fucked up because, you know, not that we would have stayed, but he hooked up with Frontiers like 2 weeks after I signed off. I was like, oh man, you know, before we agreed on the Cleopatra thing, you know, he had signed on, and I was kind of sad because, you know, just because I love Tom, and he really has, you know, a vision for rock music. You know, like he's a rocker, you know. So hopefully he does a lot of good for that label. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll cross our fingers.
Yeah.
In a 40-year career and multiple projects and multiple albums, have you ever considered doing like a 40-year tribute to TRACII Guns, covering a song from every project you've been a part of?
You know, all kinds of things cross my mind. You know, like you know, I always want to do some quirky band. You know what I mean? Where, you know, I can do that, or I can do all rockabilly versions of LA Gun songs, or all garage rock versions, or, you know, whatever. And that's the funny thing is, you know, being 40 years into a band career, that's very unusual. So, you know, you kind of, you know, from year to year, you know, your taste changes and you're into certain things. And especially with me, because I don't move forward, I move backwards. You know, I'm always listening, trying to find, you know, old stuff. And, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, I'm very envious of Jack White. I love how he's just able to kind of cruise around from project to project, and everything he does is awesome. You know, he's just so in control of his musicality, without fear, without danger, without any care in the world. He makes music for himself, and, you know, that's how LA Guns is. But I just love how he slinks from band to band and musician to musician, and everything he does is great.
You got any other projects on the horizon?
Nope, nothing.
Just LA Guns.
Yeah, and it actually feels nice because I don't have any outside pressures to hurry up and get things done for something else that's not as important as LA Guns. So right now this is good. I'm focusing on this, and it's the first time in a long time because I'm always involved with some other thing, you know. So this is just, I'm at home right now. It's great.
Good to hear. Those are all the questions I have for you today, TRACII. The new
Awesome.
album, Leopard Skin, fantastic album. It's out now through Cleopatra Records, and wish you the best of luck with it. And I hope to see you here in Massachusetts on the 26th.
Hell yeah. I'll see you soon then.